They say anger is loud, an outburst easily heard, but hatred is a silent operator. It doesn't need to scream or shout. It patiently bides its time. Its goal isn't a single strike of pain. It aims to slowly, methodically erase you. And the Stoics, those keen observers of human nature, understood this fundamental difference. Anger is a quick-burning fire, but hatred is a slow-acting poison. Fire blazes and then fades, leaving ash. Poison, however, lingers, seeping into the system and corroding from within. So, let's delve into the telltale signs of genuine hatred and explore why it poses a far greater threat than mere anger. And remember, if you ever find yourself surrounded by negativity, by people who secretly begrudge your progress or relentlessly drain your peace, know that you don't have to navigate that challenging terrain alone. I've created a Patreon community designed for individuals seeking to cultivate mental and spiritual resilience through the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Within this community, I offer personalized, one-on-one guidance via text, in-depth reflections on Stoic principles, and tailored advice to help you practically apply these teachings in your everyday life, not just passively listen to them. If you're seeking a supportive circle where wisdom triumphs over chaos, where inner strength is forged through mindful stillness, you'll find the link in the description below. You don't have to confront hate, betrayal, or confusion in isolation. Let's cultivate peace and growth together. 1. They never forget your mistakes. One of the most unmistakable indicators of deep-seated hatred is this: they possess an uncanny ability to never let go of your past errors, regardless of how much time has elapsed. No matter the good deeds you've performed since then, a hateful person will meticulously maintain a detailed mental inventory of every flaw, every slip-up, every ill-considered word you've ever uttered. They won't readily recall the times you offered assistance, provided support, or stood firmly by their side. Their memory is selectively tuned to remember only the instances where you fell short, because hatred requires a constant source of justification to survive. And when life fails to provide one, it will actively manufacture one. A hateful person isn't seeking resolution or closure. They're seeking fuel to stoke their resentment. They replay old conflicts like a recurring film reel in their mind, often rewriting the script to rationalize their feelings of animosity and amplify the drama. They inject emotion where none existed. They invent malicious intent where there was only misunderstanding. Their aim isn't to heal or reconcile. They actively seek to keep the wound festering because the lingering pain provides their hatred with its very reason for being. And here's the uncomfortable truth when someone steadfastly refuses to forgive and forget your past mistakes. It's not because they harbor a deep commitment to justice. It's because they're desperately clinging to a sense of superiority. By constantly casting you as the wrongdoer, they get to bask in the self-righteous glow of being the right one. They fixate on your imperfections because they lack the courage to confront their own shortcomings. Seneca wisely observed, "No man confers a benefit on another while he is thinking of repayment." Similarly, true forgiveness is absent when someone is meticulously keeping score. Hatred is simply the ego's elaborate scoreboard, diligently tallying every misdeed, every flaw, every imperfection to avoid facing its own failures. Reflect on that deeply. You've likely encountered people like this in your life. Individuals who dredge up things you did years ago, often at the precise moment you've demonstrably grown beyond them. You've evolved. You've changed. But in their eyes, you're forever frozen in that past version of yourself. Because their hatred isn't directed at who you are today. It's irrevocably chained to the version of you that somehow hurt them, disappointed them, or simply posed a threat to their fragile pride. Hatred thrives on the passage of time, twisting it into a weapon. It transforms days into decades, and with each passing year, the memory becomes less about the actual event and more about the intense emotion that was attached to it. They're not accurately remembering reality. They're reliving the emotional impact in vivid, distorted detail. And so, the cycle of resentment continues unchecked. But here's where Stoicism offers a powerful antidote. A Stoic doesn't seek revenge through obsessive remembrance. They pursue freedom through conscious forgetting. Because the instant you can recall a past mistake without experiencing a surge of resentment, you've achieved a significant victory. Marcus Aurelius wisely reminded himself every morning, "Let it go. The wrong done to you vanishes if you simply allow it to." And that's precisely what a hateful person is incapable of doing. They remain trapped in yesterday. They feed on the past, relishing the negativity like a dark addiction. They operate under the misguided belief that remembering your sins somehow keeps them safe from confronting their own. If you truly want to gauge the depth of someone's character, pay close attention to what they choose to remember. The wise remember valuable lessons learned. The hateful remember perceived injuries suffered. The wise recall the experiences that fuel their growth. The hateful recall anything they can weaponize against you. And, ironically, this intense obsession with your past ultimately traps them, because a mind that's constantly reliving yesterday is incapable of living peacefully in today. They become prisoners of their own memory, and hatred serves as their unrelenting jailer. So, when you encounter someone who perpetually dwells on your past mistakes, understand this fundamental truth: they're not genuinely seeking truth or reconciliation. They're seeking control and domination. They're desperately attempting to define you by your worst moment, so they never have to confront the unsettling reality that you've moved beyond it, that you've grown. And that's precisely what makes hatred so much more insidious and dangerous than anger. Anger seeks direct confrontation and resolution. Hatred wants to freeze time, to keep you perpetually stuck in their distorted version of reality. It doesn't just fight who you are in the present. It wages war against who you're striving to become. But a Stoic mind possesses a deep understanding. You're not defined by your past. You're defined by your response to it. And that's the one thing a hateful person can never seize from you: your innate power to grow, to evolve, while they remain stubbornly stuck in the past. So, let them meticulously maintain their list. Let them obsessively count your flaws and imperfections. Because while they're consumed with collecting evidence of who you were, you'll be diligently focused on becoming who they'll never be free. 2. They dismiss your success. One of the most subtle yet revealing signs of real hatred manifests in the way they downplay your achievements. When you accomplish something significant, something that demanded considerable time, sacrifice, and unwavering patience, they won't offer sincere congratulations. Instead, they'll attempt to minimize it, to make it seem trivial, easily attainable, or somehow undeserved. You'll likely hear dismissive remarks like, "Oh, anyone could have done that. You just happened to get lucky," or "It's really not that big of a deal." Notice how they consistently avoid acknowledging your effort, your dedication. They feel compelled to explain it away, because your success isn't simply a testament to what you've accomplished. It's a mirror reflecting back at them what they haven't. Hatred simply cannot tolerate progress, especially when that progress is being made by the very person it resents. Because every step forward you take, every incremental improvement you make, every quiet victory you achieve serves to expose their own stagnation, their own lack of forward momentum. And that's a reality a hateful person simply cannot tolerate. A truly hateful person would much rather live in a state of denial than acknowledge that you've actually grown and evolved. They'd rather cling to the belief that the world is inherently unfair than accept the simple truth that you worked harder. You persevered longer than they did. Their ego simply can't handle the uncomfortable notion that someone they actively dislike could also be someone they should, perhaps, respect. Seneca astutely observed, "He who envies others does not obtain peace." That's precisely what's at play here. Envy morphs into denial, and denial, in turn, fuels hatred. They don't just envy your tangible results. They envy the inequalities that made those results possible. The calm focus, the unwavering confidence, and the persistent dedication. Let me share a real-world example. A man named Adrian worked diligently at a company for 5 years. He started as a lowly intern, barely noticed by anyone. But he possessed something that many others lacked: quiet discipline. He consistently showed up early. He diligently learned from his inevitable failures. He wasn't particularly verbose. He simply dedicated himself to his work. Eventually, his hard work paid off, and he earned a well-deserved promotion. Not because he engaged in office politics or manipulative tactics, but because his consistent performance spoke far louder than any words ever could. When the news of his promotion spread, some people offered sincere congratulations. But there was one particular colleague, let's call him Marcus, who simply smirked and said, "Guess you were just in the right place at the right time." That's hatred cleverly disguised as casual conversation. Marcus was incapable of admitting that Adrian genuinely deserved the promotion, because doing so would force him to confront his own ingrained laziness, his own lack of ambition. So, he dismissed Adrian's success as mere luck, rather than the product of sustained effort. And that's how hatred often operates, subtly lurking beneath layers of insincere compliments and cutting sarcasm. They won't directly attack you or your character. Instead, they'll attempt to undermine the validity of what you've actually achieved. If you bravely start a business, they'll casually remark that everyone's doing that these days. If you dedicate yourself to getting in shape, they'll insinuate that you must have good genetics. If you find love and happiness, they'll say you simply got lucky with the timing. Every accomplishment, no matter how hard-earned, becomes something that merely happened, never something you actively earned. This is where Stoicism offers invaluable perspective. A Stoic doesn't seek external validation from others, because he understands that most people tend to judge through the distorting lens of their own insecurities and limitations. Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth." And the core truth is that hateful people aren't truly reacting to your actual success. They're reacting to their own deeply ingrained sense of personal failure. They feel compelled to belittle you, to diminish your accomplishments, in order to restore a sense of perceived balance in their own lives. Because if they were to genuinely acknowledge your growth and progress, they'd be forced to confront the uncomfortable parts of themselves that have stubbornly refused to grow. It's not inherently your success that offends them. It's the stark reflection of what they could have been. If only they had been willing to exert the same level of effort and dedication that you did. And that's a critical difference between simple anger and deep-seated hatred. Anger flares up when you achieve a victory. Hatred actively denies that you've won at all. It rewrites the entire narrative to protect the fragile ego from being bruised. So, what should you do when people consistently dismiss your achievements? You remain quiet and composed. You stay grounded in humility. You simply continue moving forward, because you don't owe anyone your detailed struggle story. You don't need to prove how difficult the journey was. You don't need to justify what you've built to people who wouldn't have believed in you in the first place. Stoicism teaches us the importance of remaining indifferent to both praise and criticism, because both are ultimately outside of our direct control. Your success doesn't require their validation to be real and meaningful. It's already undeniably real because you lived through the challenging process that created it. So, let them downplay it. Let them shrug it off. Let them pretend it doesn't matter. Because deep down, they know that it does. They wouldn't feel compelled to dismiss it so vehemently if it didn't deeply bother them. A hateful person's persistent denial is often the clearest proof that you've grown beyond their limited understanding, that you've transcended their negativity. They're incapable of celebrating your achievements because your shining light serves as a constant reminder of their own self-imposed shadows. So, when they casually say, "You just got lucky," simply smile quietly to yourself. Because while luck may open the initial door, only unwavering discipline and dedication will keep it open, and that's a fundamental truth that a hateful person will never truly understand. 3. They gossip behind your back. If anger seeks direct confrontation, preferring to engage you face to face, hatred favors a more insidious approach, preferring to whisper damaging rumors when you're not around to defend yourself. It doesn't strike you directly, openly challenging your views. Instead, it subtly stabs at your reputation while attempting to maintain the illusion of clean hands. When someone truly harbors hatred for you, they won't always attack you openly and honestly. That would require a certain level of courage, and direct confrontation invariably demands truthfulness. Instead, they'll cowardly resort to gossip, which is hatred's favorite weapon of choice. Gossip allows people to inflict harm while maintaining a pretense of simply talking or sharing concerns. It enables them to subtly poison how others perceive you, without ever appearing overtly malicious or confrontational. They'll often begin with a seemingly innocuous phrase like, "I don't mean to talk bad about them, but..." And what inevitably follows is always venomous and damaging. The Stoics viewed gossip as one of the lowest forms of human weakness and moral failing. Epictetus wisely said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Because the more you rise above petty individuals and their negativity, the more their envious mouths will try to pull you back down to their level. A hateful person engages in gossip not because they genuinely know or understand you, but because they're desperately trying to control your public image. They realize they can't destroy your inherent truth, so they attempt to distort it beyond recognition. They can't defeat your physical presence, so they instead try to dominate your absence by shaping the narrative in their favor. Behind closed doors, they twist your words, exaggerate your flaws, and conveniently fill in any missing blanks with their own unfounded assumptions. They eagerly feed their distorted version of you to anyone who is willing to listen. And what makes this form of hatred particularly dangerous is that it doesn't outwardly sound like hate. It often masquerades as genuine concern or well-intentioned advice. "I just think they've changed lately. I heard they're not really who they seem to be. I don't know. Something about them just feels off." It's essentially psychological warfare, skillfully disguised as casual conversation, a slow, steady drip of subtle poison designed to gradually transform admiration into suspicion and doubt. And the uncomfortable truth is that most hateful people don't necessarily want to see you completely destroyed. They often want something far more insidious. They want you to be fundamentally misunderstood. Because once others begin to doubt your integrity, your voice loses its power and influence. And that's ultimately how hatred wins, not through overt violence or aggression, but through the slow, steady erosion of your hard-earned reputation. Let me give you a concrete example to illustrate this point. A woman named Clara worked quietly and diligently, never causing trouble for anyone. She wasn't particularly loud or arrogant, but she was incredibly focused and dedicated to her work. Her inherent calmness and strong work ethic naturally led to her success. And that very success inevitably drew some quiet envy from those around her. One day, she noticed that her co-workers had begun treating her differently. The overall tone had subtly shifted. The smiles she received felt tighter and less genuine. Later, she discovered that someone had been whispering damaging rumors behind her back, falsely claiming that Clara had been flirting with the boss in order to get ahead of the company. It was a blatant lie, completely devoid of truth. But the actual truth didn't really matter. The damage had already been done. The hateful individual never actually confronted her directly. They simply didn't possess the courage to do so. Instead, they did something far more insidious and damaging. They subtly changed how the world around her perceived her. And in doing so, they found the fleeting illusion of power that they so desperately craved. That's precisely what gossip does. It doesn't immediately destroy the truth. It gradually corrodes it, like rust slowly weakening a piece of iron. It spreads quietly and persistently until the underlying structure begins to weaken and crumble. A Stoic, however, understands that reputation, while valuable and important, is ultimately outside of one's direct control. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it." In other words, people are always going to talk, and it's your reaction and response that ultimately determines whether their words carry any real weight or significance. The best possible revenge for gossip isn't direct confrontation or angry retaliation. It's sustained excellence in all that you do. Simply continue to do the very things they said you couldn't. Continue to walk your path with unwavering integrity and honor. As you do, their words will gradually lose their meaning and impact, because gossip is only truly powerful when it finds a receptive audience. The more you rise above their negativity, the smaller and more insignificant their whispers will sound. The more peace and composure you project, the more obvious and apparent their underlying bitterness will become to everyone around you. Understand this fundamental truth: gossip is never truly about you. It's always about them, their own deep-seated insecurities, their perceived failures, their quiet jealousy of your achievements. Your success directly threatens their fragile sense of comfort. Your composure exposes their internal chaos. Your shining light reveals their self-imposed shadows. So, they resort to gossip because they lack the ability to genuinely compete. They gossip because your very silence feels like an act of superiority. They gossip because it's the only way they can temporarily feel taller without actually having to grow as individuals. But here's the ultimate irony. Every time they talk about you, they inadvertently give you power and influence. They spread your name further. They confirm your continued presence. They keep your story alive in the minds of others. In effect, you've already become the main character in a story that they desperately wish they were a part of. So, don't waste your time and energy defending yourself to those who readily believe gossip and rumors. Let their easily swayed ears serve as a mirror reflecting their own shallowness and lack of critical thinking. As Epictetus wisely said, when someone is properly grounded in life and in their own sense of self, they do not need to look outside themselves for validation or approval. Simply let them talk, because while they're busy whispering in circles, you'll be moving in silence, diligently building what they can only discuss and tear down. And that's ultimately what truly kills hatred. When your inner peace grows louder and more resonant than their petty poison, gossip will ultimately reveal far more about the speaker than it ever reveals about the subject. Hatred may whisper behind your back, but truth walks calmly beside you, unbothered, unshaken, and ultimately triumphant. For they secretly celebrate your failures. One of the darkest and most telling signs of genuine hatred is this: they harbor a secret, often well-concealed joy when you stumble or experience setbacks. They don't throw a public party to celebrate your misfortune. They don't outwardly clap their hands in glee, but you'll likely feel it, sense it in the subtle shifts in their demeanor. That faint, almost imperceptible smirk, that delayed, insincere, "Oh, that's unfortunate," that suspicious calmness when something undeniably bad happens to you. Hatred doesn't always roar with overt aggression. Sometimes, it quietly watches from the sidelines, deriving perverse pleasure from your pain and suffering. Anger is quick to lash out, often loud, impulsive, and typically gone by the next day. But hatred patiently waits. It lurks in the background, slowly feeding on envy and festering resentment until it finally finds a twisted sense of satisfaction in your inevitable pain. It doesn't seek to quickly destroy you. Its goal is far more insidious. It wants to watch you slowly stumble and struggle, just enough for them to momentarily feel superior once again. That's precisely what makes hatred so much more dangerous and insidious than mere anger. It's often expertly disguised. It wears a polite mask of civility while secretly wishing for your downfall. Let's imagine a common scenario to illustrate this point. You've been diligently building a business, or perhaps you've been consistently working to improve yourself in some meaningful way. You've been consistent, disciplined, and steadily rising above certain challenges. You start to gain attention, receive genuine compliments, and experience tangible success. Suddenly, one of your closest friends becomes distant and withdrawn. The one who used to text you daily now takes hours to respond, if they respond at all. The one who once cheered you on with genuine enthusiasm now watches in stony silence, offering neither encouragement nor support. Then, one day, something inevitably goes wrong. A critical business deal falls through. a key client decides to leave. Or perhaps life simply throws you an unexpected setback. That same distant person suddenly reappears out of nowhere and offers a seemingly innocuous comment like, "Yeah, I had a feeling that would happen." That seemingly harmless phrase, "I had a feeling," is actually venom carefully wrapped in subtle condescension. It's not genuine concern or empathy. It's thinly veiled satisfaction. They're not actually warning you about potential pitfalls. They're subtly celebrating the perceived accuracy of their own private wish for your failure. They didn't truly want to see you succeed, because your very success exposed their own lack of progress and their own deep-seated insecurities. Hatred isn't fundamentally about you. It's always about them. It's born from persistent comparison and the uncomfortable feeling that your shining light somehow makes their own darkness even more visible. When you win, it feels like a direct, personal insult to their fragile ego. When you fail, they finally experience a fleeting sense of peace and equilibrium again. That's precisely why they secretly crave your failure, not because they genuinely want to see you suffer, but because it temporarily silences their own nagging insecurities and doubts. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When someone harbors hatred for you, their thoughts are inevitably poisoned with resentment and negativity. They're unable to genuinely enjoy their own life. So they desperately try to find fleeting enjoyment in the cracks and imperfections of yours. That's the ultimate tragedy of hatred. It's a corrosive poison that slowly burns the vessel it inhabits long before it ever truly touches its intended target. And you'll see unmistakable signs of it in their behavior. They'll consistently fail to reach out and congratulate you when you succeed, but they'll mysteriously reappear the instant you experience a setback or failure. They'll feign sympathy and concern, but their underlying tone will subtly betray them. Their carefully chosen words will carry that unmistakable flavor of quiet satisfaction. Sometimes they'll even subtly spread word of your failures behind your back, just to temporarily feel more powerful or to somehow manufacture a false sense of moral superiority for themselves. You'll likely notice it too, in their impeccable timing. They're noticeably quiet and reserved when you're steadily rising, but remarkably loud and opinionated when you inevitably stumble and fall. They'll offer condescending comments like, "I was just worried about you," or perhaps, "Maybe you were moving a little too fast." These phrases are not genuine expressions of support or concern. They're thinly veiled attempts at covert celebration. In Stoicism, hatred is widely considered to be one of the lowest and most destructive forms of human weakness. Seneca eloquently wrote that anger is temporary madness, but hatred is chronic madness, a persistent disease of the spirit that slowly erodes empathy, compassion, and the capacity for genuine human connection. When someone secretly celebrates your failures, they're essentially revealing their own deep spiritual decay. They've lost the inherent ability to love truth, celebrate growth, and appreciate beauty, because all of those things serve as a constant reminder of what they themselves fundamentally lack. The Stoic approach in this situation is simple. Don't hate them in return. Don't waste your precious time and energy trying to prove them wrong, or attempting to rub your eventual success in their faces. That will only serve to feed their internal sickness and validate their distorted worldview. Instead, simply remain calm, composed, and resilient. Let your unwavering resilience do the talking for you. Let your quiet, inner peace humiliate their persistent bitterness. Because nothing effectively destroys the hateful faster than seeing you rise again without rage, without seeking revenge, and without any need for their petty approval. Remember this vital truth: when someone rejoices in your pain, they've already fundamentally lost something of immense value. You, on the other hand, still possess your inner peace. Their hatred quietly consumes them from the inside out, while your strength multiplies with each challenge you overcome. So, if you ever notice someone subtly smiling when you suffer or going conspicuously silent when you win, simply take note of it. They're unknowingly showing you what their heart truly holds. And in that revealing moment, be genuinely grateful, because their reaction serves as your valuable revelation. Real hatred doesn't just reveal your enemies, it also reveals your undeniable growth, your consistent progress, and your inherent strength to remain calm and grounded in a world that secretly wants to see you fall. 5. They pretend you don't exist. One of the coldest and most emotionally painful signs of genuine hatred is the stark absence of any acknowledgement whatsoever, silence. When someone actively pretends that you simply don't exist, no overt confrontation, no heated argument, no sense of closure, just quiet and complete erasure. This isn't the peaceful silence of contentment or mutual understanding. It's the deliberate silence of punishment, a calculated attempt to inflict emotional pain. It's their twisted way of saying, "You're not even worth my attention or my time." And that's precisely what makes it so inherently cruel and damaging. Because human beings are fundamentally wired to crave recognition and acknowledgement from others. Even anger from someone can feel strangely more human and validating than being treated with utter indifference. But hatred goes far deeper than mere anger. It doesn't seek to actively fight or engage with you. Its ultimate goal is to completely erase you from their reality. People who hate you in this way often weaponize invisibility, using it as a tool to inflict emotional damage. They'll walk past you without even a fleeting glance. They'll act as if your past achievements never happened, and they'll conveniently forget your name when giving credit where it's rightfully due. They'll pretend that your very presence in a room doesn't shift the dynamic or alter the energy, even though you both know that it undeniably does. This passive-aggressive behavior is essentially psychological warfare cleverly disguised as maturity or emotional control. The Stoics understood this complex dynamic exceptionally well. Epictetus wisely taught that you cannot ultimately control what others say or do, but you always have complete control over how you choose to respond. And when someone actively chooses to pretend that you don't exist, the appropriate Stoic response isn't to desperately beg for their attention or chase after their validation. It's to cultivate even greater self-sufficiency and inner resilience, to master the valuable art of being completely content with your own existence, regardless of external circumstances. Because nothing more effectively disarms hatred than quiet self-respect and unwavering inner peace. Let's make this concept more tangible with a real-world example. Imagine you once shared a close friendship with someone who intimately knew your struggles, your aspirations, your inherent flaws and imperfections. Over time, perhaps you began to grow, change, and rise above certain limiting patterns that they simply couldn't escape. Instead of celebrating your growth and evolving alongside you, they grew increasingly bitter and resentful. They gradually stopped responding to your messages, actively ignored your successes, and when you happened to enter the same room, They looked right through you as if you were nothing more than empty air. No goodbye, no explanation, just sudden and complete disappearance. That's precisely what hatred can look like when it's too proud or cowardly to openly speak its mind. It doesn't overtly attack or confront. It silently deletes. It's like being ghosted, not out of disinterest or apathy, but out of deep-seated disdain and resentment. The silent treatment becomes their twisted form of dominance and control. They mistakenly believe that ignoring you somehow gives them power over you. But here's the ultimate irony. By investing significant energy in actively pretending that you don't exist, they inadvertently prove that you still matter powerfully, uncomfortably, and deeply. When someone harbors hatred for you, they often can't stand the idea that you might still possess peace and happiness, even without their acknowledgement or approval. Your very existence irritates their fragile sense of self-importance and control. They desperately want you to crave their attention, to break down emotionally, to chase after them, to somehow prove your inherent worth. That's how they feed their fragile ego and temporarily alleviate their internal suffering. And when you refuse to give them that satisfaction, when you remain calm, detached, and focused on your own path, they slowly begin to lose their perceived power. Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When someone tries to erase you from their reality, don't return the favor with bitterness, anger, or resentment. Don't waste your precious time and energy trying to prove your value to people who are already committed to misunderstanding you. Simply keep walking your chosen path with quiet dignity and unwavering self-respect. That's the Stoic way, not to retaliate with aggression, but to transcend through inner strength and wisdom. And the fundamental truth is that pretending someone doesn't exist is not a sign of strength. It's actually a sign of weakness hiding behind a facade of arrogance and emotional detachment. It's the typical behavior of someone who is too emotionally fragile to handle your very presence. People who genuinely possess inner peace and contentment don't feel the need to erase or diminish anyone else. They can peacefully coexist without the need for conflict or control. Only those who are secretly threatened by your inherent qualities and accomplishments feel the need to pretend that you're invisible. The inherent danger of this particular type of hatred is that it's covert and subtle. It's not dramatic or overtly obvious. It subtly seeps into interactions through consistent avoidance, cold politeness, or selective silence. But make no mistake, it's still hatred, just one that cleverly wears the deceptive mask of emotional control. The Stoic lesson here is remarkably simple and direct when people actively pretend that you don't exist. Don't internalize it or allow it to define you. Their deliberate silence doesn't diminish your inherent worth. It merely exposes their own inner emptiness and limitations. The world is vast and full of potential, with over 8 billion people, and one person's refusal to acknowledge you doesn't erase your existence or diminish your value in any meaningful way. Their willful ignorance doesn't somehow make you invisible. It only serves to expose their own blindness and lack of perception. So, maintain your composure. Continue walking your chosen path with unwavering determination. Let your very presence be your eloquent statement, because the most powerful and effective response to being erased is to live your life in such a way that your existence speaks far louder than their calculated silence ever could. And always remember this core truth: real hatred doesn't always shout or scream. Sometimes it simply looks away, hoping that you'll eventually disappear. But if you remain calm, if you stay grounded in your values, if you stay present and engaged with the world, they'll eventually realize the undeniable truth: you were never the one who disappeared. They did. 6. They imitate you out of spite. This one might initially surprise you, but one of the most twisted and unsettling signs of genuine hatred isn't overt rejection or mocking ridicule. It's imitation. Yes, deliberate imitation. When someone begins to meticulously copy you, not out of genuine admiration or respect, but because they can't stand the fact that you are the one who did it first. At first glance, imitation can often seem like a form of flattery. We've all heard the familiar saying, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But that sentiment only holds true when the imitation stems from genuine admiration and respect. When it originates from a place of hatred and resentment, imitation transforms into a subtle form of warfare, a twisted attempt to undermine your individuality. It's not about appreciating your inherent essence or unique qualities. It's about strategically stealing them. It's their manipulative way of saying, if I become like you, perhaps I can dismantle the very essence of what makes you special. It's crucial to recognize that hatred often lurks beneath the surface of envy. And envy isn't about coveting what you possess. It's about wanting to be you. But without the necessary effort, the endured pain, the unwavering discipline, or the developed soul, this dark desire is what fuels its intensity. So, when someone mimics you out of spite, their intention isn't to learn or improve. Their motive is purely competition. You'll notice them adopting your style of dress, mimicking your speech patterns, mirroring your online presence, and even embracing your beliefs or ideas. But with a significant difference. They will never give you credit for it. In fact, they'll behave as if these were their own original inventions, seeking your radiance without acknowledging its true source. Consider this scenario. You decide to create a YouTube channel dedicated to Stoicism, channeling all your energy and passion into delivering your message. You meticulously research, carefully craft your scripts, and continuously refine your approach. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, someone you know, perhaps even a friend, launches a channel that bears an uncanny resemblance to yours. The tone, the video titles, even the thumbnail designs are strikingly similar. Yet, they never mention you or your influence. Instead, they may even insinuate that you are the one copying them. This isn't mere coincidence. It's hostility masquerading as inspiration. They're not looking to honor your impact. They're attempting to erase it completely. Stoic philosophy offers us profound insight into this type of behavior. Epictetus wisely stated, "When you see someone succeed by cheating or pretending, remember that they have chosen a different path than yours." The hateful imitator deliberately chooses the path of illusion. Their goal is to project an image of strength, wisdom, or originality that mirrors yours, but without enduring the trials and tribulations that shaped you. They don't desire your journey. They simply covet your results. And this is where the situation takes an even darker turn. They will often imitate you with the explicit intention of surpassing you. If you cultivate a calm and measured way of speaking, they will strive to speak even more calmly, not because it's authentic to them, but because it gives them a sense of having triumphed over you in your own domain. If you embrace a minimalist style of dress, they will suddenly adopt minimalism as well, not because they understand or appreciate its underlying philosophy, but because they seek to strip you of what makes you unique and recognizable. Hatred is fundamentally competitive. Its driving force is domination, not personal growth. Imitation, in this context, becomes a form of psychological assault, a deliberate attempt to blur your identity and make your unique qualities seem replaceable. But here's a foundational Stoic truth to hold on to. No one can truly replicate your essence. They can copy your outward style, your actions, your aesthetic choices, but they cannot duplicate your soul, your individual way of thinking, the depth of your emotions, the authenticity that underlies your creative expression. These are all inherently unique and impossible to replicate. Imitation can mimic the superficial form, but it can never capture the underlying depth. Seneca observed, "No man becomes great by imitation." The hateful imitator inadvertently proves this point. The more diligently they copy you, the more diminished they become, because each act of imitation serves as a constant reminder of what they already know. You are the original. Still, it hurts. It's painful to witness your ideas, your very essence, or your personal style being appropriated by someone who secretly despises you. It feels like a theft, and in a very real sense, it is. However, the Stoic response is not to expose them or seek revenge. It's to cultivate detachment. Understand that imitation driven by spite is, paradoxically, a compliment in disguise. It signifies that your existence is powerful enough to provoke replication, that you have become a mirror reflecting their own feelings of inadequacy. People who harbor hatred toward you while simultaneously imitating you are trapped between two conflicting emotions, envy and denial. They envy the light you possess, but they vehemently deny their admiration because acknowledging it would bruise their ego. So, they quietly steal from you, hoping that by copying you, they can somehow silence the nagging internal reminder of their own perceived shortcomings. But they will never succeed, because imitation fueled by hatred does not bring inner peace. It breeds obsession. Therefore, if you ever notice someone closely mirroring your voice, your habits, your words, or your overall way of being, yet consistently avoiding eye contact with the truth, recognize what's truly happening. They're not becoming you. They're attempting to consume the part of you that unsettles them. Don't allow it to disrupt your inner calm. Let them imitate. Let them perform, because while they are consumed with pretending to be you, you are free to continue evolving into an even greater version of yourself. The Stoic response is simple. Never compete with the counterfeit. Remain authentic, grounded, and committed to continuous growth. The more they imitate you out of spite, the more they reinforce, both to the world and to themselves, who the original truly is. 7. They talk to everyone except you. One of the most subtle, yet profoundly telling, signs of genuine hatred is when someone deliberately engages with everyone else while pointedly excluding you. They will greet everyone in the room, laugh with your friends, and make eye contact with everyone present. But when it comes to you, there is only silence, not an accidental oversight, but a calculated omission. This is the language of exclusion, a psychological weapon employed by those who lack the courage for direct confrontation. They have no desire to argue or engage in meaningful discussion. Their sole aim is to make you feel invisible, to communicate that you don't belong. Initially, This behavior might seem harmless. You might rationalize it as them simply being in a bad mood. However, over time, it becomes increasingly clear that their avoidance is not random, it's intentional. They want you to notice the silence. They want you to feel the sting of being deliberately ignored while they lavish their attention on everyone else around you. And the truth is, this behavior isn't about communication, it's about control. When someone harbors deep-seated hatred toward you but is unwilling to express it directly, they weaponize social isolation by excluding you from conversations. In doing so, they attempt to diminish your presence, to make you question your worth, your voice, and your place within the group. In Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius would have characterized this as the vanity of others, because only an insecure mind believes that ignoring someone grants them power. A wise person understands that silence loses its power when you no longer crave attention. Consider this example. You're at work. During a team discussion, everyone is actively participating, sharing ideas and exchanging jokes. The person sitting next to you, who clearly harbors animosity toward you, speaks to everyone else but completely skips over you. You ask a clarifying question, and they pretend not to hear you. You offer a suggestion, and they act as if you haven't spoken. Moments later, someone else repeats your exact thought, and they suddenly nod in agreement. This isn't a coincidence, it's selective exclusion, their way of silencing your voice within the social circle, hoping to undermine your confidence. But a Stoic does not beg to be included. Epictetus advised, "If you wish to be loved, love yourself." This means that if others withdraw their attention, it shouldn't disturb your inner peace. Their silence should not resonate within you unless you allow it to. Because when you are truly secure in your own value, you cease seeking validation from those who are too blinded by resentment to offer it. The psychology underpinning this kind of hatred is fascinating. People who harbor hatred toward you but avoid engaging with you directly are typically grappling with two conflicting emotions: jealousy and fear. They are jealous of your confidence, your composure, and your authenticity, and they are afraid that interacting with you might expose their own insecurities. They avoid you because, deep down, your very presence threatens them. You become a mirror, reflecting their lack of self-control. So, instead of confronting that discomfort, they create artificial distance, falsely believing that their silence elevates them. But in reality, their avoidance reveals their weakness. Because avoidance is not strength. It's an escape, and you'll likely notice that they aren't silent with everyone. They will often go out of their way to speak louder, smile wider, and connect more enthusiastically with others when you're around, precisely to ensure that you see it. This isn't genuine warmth. It's performative cruelty. They want you to feel the sting of exclusion. That's the aspect that most people fail to recognize. Hatred doesn't always manifest as direct aggression. Sometimes it seeks to erase you socially. It's a form of psychological warfare that doesn't require words, only carefully calculated gestures. And that's precisely what makes it so effective, because it leaves you questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Do I deserve this treatment? But the Stoic approach is clarity. You remind yourself that this behavior is not about you. It's a reflection of their own internal turmoil. A person who is at peace with themselves has no need to exclude others. They are capable of interacting with grace, even with those with whom they disagree. Therefore, When someone pointedly refuses to speak to you, it provides you with valuable insight, not about your worth, but about the inner chaos that consumes them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not what others say or do that troubles you, but your judgment of their actions." Meaning, when they ignore you, it only causes pain if you choose to allow it to. If you view it through the lens of Stoic wisdom, their silence becomes powerless. It simply bounces off your inner calm. So, the next time someone deliberately engages with everyone except you, don't shrink, don't question your voice. Instead, observe them with quiet understanding. Smile inwardly, because now you recognize the truth. Their silence is not peace. It's noise in disguise. True hatred doesn't always shout or spread gossip. Sometimes it whispers through silence. But the Stoic does not chase noise. They cultivate stillness. And the greatest form of power is this: when they choose to ignore you, and you genuinely don't care. 8. They smile while harming you. This is perhaps the most insidious and, therefore, the most dangerous form of hatred. When someone smiles as they inflict harm, you are not dealing with ordinary anger. You are confronting a calm, calculated form of hatred, one that strategically hides behind a facade of charm, courtesy, and politeness. Anger seeks to destroy you swiftly. Hatred disguised as kindness seeks to destroy you quietly. And that's what makes it so terrifying. These are the individuals who will act friendly in public, shower you with praise in front of others, and pretend to be your biggest supporters. But behind closed doors, they will twist the knife, sabotaging your reputation, manipulating your words, or subtly undermining your confidence, all while maintaining that perfect, disarming smile. It's a psychological mask, and the smile is their camouflage. They wear it to appear harmless, trustworthy, or even caring, while every move they make is meticulously calculated to weaken you. Consider this scenario. You work with someone who always greets you warmly, telling you that you're doing a fantastic job with a grin that seems utterly genuine. But then, you discover that they've been subtly spreading rumors about you. Nothing direct or overtly malicious, just enough to plant seeds of doubt in people's minds. When you confront them, they laugh it off, saying, "Oh, come on, you know I would never do that." That's not a misunderstanding. That's manipulation. That's hatred wearing perfume. And here's the subtle genius of it, because they're smiling. You begin to second-guess yourself. You wonder, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they're just joking. That's exactly what they want. They want you confused, hesitant, and unsure of your own intuition. In Stoic philosophy, this type of behavior would be viewed as a corruption of the soul, indicative of someone who has lost alignment between their inner thoughts and their outer actions. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Hatred disguised as kindness operates in the same way. It's a form of cowardice that refuses to reveal itself honestly. These smiling enemies lack the courage to confront you directly, preferring to engage in manipulative mind games. They inflict harm with kindness because open hostility would expose their own weakness. Therefore, they hide behind the illusion of goodwill, making them doubly dangerous, because the human brain is naturally inclined to trust warmth. We are disarmed by friendliness. That's why it's essential to learn to read energy, not just words. The Stoics would advise observing behavior over time. A person's true character inevitably reveals itself through consistent patterns. Someone who genuinely supports you will want to see you grow, even if it poses a threat to their own ego. But someone who hates you will always temper their praise with poison, delivering a compliment followed by a subtle jab, or a smile followed by an undermining remark. For example, they might say things like, "You're really improving, I didn't think you had it in you," or "I love your new project, but don't you think it's a bit ambitious?" Or even, "You've changed a lot, hopefully for the better." Each phrase sounds harmless, even polite, but beneath the surface, it's a psychological needle carefully designed to puncture your confidence without leaving visible wounds. This is why Stoicism emphasizes the importance of emotional discipline, not only in how you act, but also in how you perceive. When someone smiles while harming you, your instinct is to react, to expose them, to defend yourself, and to prove that you're right. But a Stoic has no need to do any of that. A Stoic simply sees the truth and remains unmoved. Because once you recognize the pattern, once you see the venom lurking beneath the smile, their power dissolves. You stop taking their words personally, and you cease to be surprised by their actions. You begin to understand that every fake compliment, every saccharine remark, every smile that accompanies the twisting of the knife is, in reality, a confession of weakness. Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, "The best way to avenge yourself is not to become like them." So, when you encounter these smiling enemies, don't lower yourself to their level. Don't play their game. Don't allow bitterness to distort your inner peace. Simply step back, observe, and remain kind, but maintain a safe distance. Because here's the ultimate irony. Their smile is a mask they wear because they cannot handle your authenticity, your composure, your strength, or your quiet self-control. It serves as a constant reminder of everything they lack. Their smile conceals their envy, and their politeness masks their fear. When you remain grounded, refusing to mirror their deceit, you expose their truth without uttering a single word. So remember this, not every smile is friendly. Not every kind word is sincere, and not every ally is truly on your side. But when you live by Stoic principles, self-control, awareness, and calm detachment, no false smile can deceive you for long. Because hatred, disguised as kindness, inevitably betrays itself in the end. And when it does, your peace will be the loudest silence they'll ever encounter. 9. They try to turn others against you. There is something even more dangerous than being hated. Outright being hated silently and indirectly. When someone truly despises you, they often avoid direct confrontation. They don't yell, they don't argue, and they don't engage in face-to-face conflict. Instead, they initiate something far more insidious. They work behind the scenes to turn others against you. Hatred is like smoke, seeping through unseen cracks until it permeates the entire room. And those who harbor it are often too afraid to confront you directly, so they seek to infect others instead. They whisper, twist, and manipulate stories until even those closest to you begin to question who you truly are. This is one of the most painful forms of betrayal, because it attacks your reputation, not your physical being. It's a calculated form of psychological warfare. A person who hates you doesn't simply want to see you isolated because of something you did. They want to see you isolated because of who you are. They cannot tolerate the fact that others like you, respect you, or trust you because it highlights their own perceived deficiencies. So, they launch a quiet, insidious campaign. They begin by subtly reshaping how people think about you. You'll hear phrases like, "Don't you think they've changed lately?" Or, "I like them, but something just feels off." Or even, "I'm not trying to gossip, I just think you should be careful." These seemingly innocuous sentences are, in reality, poison disguised as concern. They sound harmless, but they are carefully engineered to trigger doubt, to make others view you differently, and to make them hesitate before defending you. Often, this kind of manipulation begins subtly, a single rumor, a private conversation, a carefully planted seed of distrust. But hatred, once it takes root, never remains stagnant. It feeds on momentum. The more people they manage to convince, the more powerful they feel. And when others begin to join in, repeating, adding to, and exaggerating the initial seeds of doubt, it becomes a wildfire. The Stoics understood this long before the advent of social media amplified the power of gossip. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But people driven by hatred are not governed by truth. They are driven by emotional projection. They desperately need to make others feel the same bitterness they carry inside. Consider this real-world example. Imagine you've been working diligently at your job. You consistently show up early, contribute to your team, and finally receive recognition, perhaps even a promotion. Instead of congratulating you, someone begins to insinuate that you're just trying to impress the boss, or that you must have connections. They cast your success in a suspicious light, as if your hard work was merely a calculated act of manipulation. Soon, your co-workers begin to keep their distance, unsure of what to believe. You have done nothing wrong, but hatred rarely requires a legitimate reason. It simply needs a target. This kind of social sabotage is intentionally designed to destroy your inner peace. You begin to overthink, doubt your worth, and wonder what people are saying about you when you leave the room. This is precisely what your haters want. They want to see you crumble under the weight of isolation. They want you to become defensive, paranoid, and diminished. But this is where Stoicism becomes your armor. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. You cannot control the rumors that are being spread, but you can control your reaction to them. The moment you begin desperately defending yourself to everyone, you surrender your power. The truth does not require frantic defense. It simply requires patience. When you remain calm, composed, and consistent in your actions, the lies will eventually collapse under their own weight. People will begin to recognize patterns. They'll realize that the person spreading the rumors always seems to have a new target. They'll see that drama consistently follows them, and their credibility will slowly erode. Hatred may win a few short-term battles, but it invariably loses the war, because lies require constant maintenance, while truth stands effortlessly on its own. You might be tempted to expose them, to gather evidence and make them look bad. But the Stoic response is not revenge, it's restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When they lie, you tell the truth. When they spread gossip, you remain silent. When they plot in the shadows, you walk in the light. This is how you win, not by shouting, but by outlasting." And here's the irony. People who try to turn others against you ultimately end up turning everyone against themselves. Because once they're finished with you, they'll inevitably need a new target. It's an endless cycle. They destroy relationships, erode trust, and ultimately compromise their own integrity. Hatred consumes them from within long before it ever touches you. So, when you notice someone quietly twisting your image, don't panic. Don't chase after rumors. Just observe. Continue living with honesty, kindness, and composure. Over time, people will discern who is genuine and who is rotten. Hatred thrives on reaction. It withers in silence. That's why your calm is their greatest frustration. When they see you unbothered, still growing, still smiling, and still respected, their entire effort crumbles, because the truth possesses something that hatred never will endurance. So, when others attempt to turn the world against you, remember that they can manipulate words, but they cannot touch your essence. Remain rooted in your integrity. Let your life speak louder than their lies. And eventually, the truth will accomplish what hatred never can. It will endure. Hatred is not always loud. It doesn't always manifest as screaming or open conflict. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it acts polite. And sometimes it hides behind people who pretend to care. But true hatred, the quiet, insidious kind, is far more dangerous than anger, because anger dissipates once it's expressed, while hatred lingers. It plots. It studies your every move, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to strike where it hurts the most: your peace, your reputation, your sense of self. The Stoics believed that hatred is not a reflection of you, but of the person who feels it. Epictetus once stated, "When someone does wrong, remember they act according to what they believe is right." Hatred operates in the same way. It's a symptom of confusion, envy, and pain disguised as superiority. People hate what reminds them of their own unhealed wounds. Your calmness irritates the restless. Your confidence exposes the insecure. Your light offends those still lost in darkness. But here's the crucial point. Hatred cannot survive without your reaction. The moment you fight it, feed it, or try to make sense of it, you grant it power. The Stoic path is not to engage with the darkness, but to outshine it through discipline and inner peace. That's the essence of Stoic strength, emotional control in the face of cruelty. You don't need to correct every rumor, confront every liar, or expose every betrayal. Let time quietly do its work. The truth does not require your frantic defense. It simply needs your patience. Your enemies will reveal themselves through their own words, and when they do, your silence will be the loudest possible response. If you aspire to live a Stoic life, remember this: your calm is your fortress. Every hateful act loses its power the moment you refuse to react. Your peace is not naivete, it's mastery. It's knowing that not every battle deserves your sword. Some are best won through stillness. And if you ever find yourself surrounded by hatred, remain kind, but stay sharp. Don't allow bitterness to transform you into what you despise. Protect your peace as a warrior protects their armor. Because once you allow hatred to shape you, it wins. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best way to avenge yourself is to not be like the wrongdoer." So, don't let hate rewrite your character. Continue walking your path. Continue speaking your truth, and keep your heart clean. That's how you rise above. Not by proving anyone wrong, but by refusing to become them. And before we conclude, if you ever feel overwhelmed by negativity or struggle to maintain your center amidst chaos, I've created a Patreon community where I personally guide individuals one-on-one through Stoic practices, text-based mentorship, and private teachings focused on emotional mastery and inner peace. It's a small, supportive circle for those who seek to cultivate inner strength that no amount of hatred can touch. You can join through the link in the description or pinned comment, and begin your own journey toward calm, Stoic resilience. Because in a world filled with noise, hatred, and chaos, peace is an act of rebellion, and mastering yourself is the ultimate victory.